In the endless dark of the universe, stars burned quietly, and civilizations lived with pride and fear. The galaxy was full of empires that ruled for thousands of years. They believed they understood the truth of history. They believed they knew how power had shifted in the long ages. But hidden inside their records was a lie so great that it shaped their entire world. That lie was about humanity. Long ago, humans had walked among the stars. They were not weak, as the stories now said. They were explorers, builders, and warriors. Their ships crossed the galaxy when many other species were still learning fire. Yet 50,000 years ago, humanity disappeared. Entire fleets, colonies, and worlds were gone. No war was recorded, no enemy was blamed, only silence. The galaxy moved on. New rulers rose. Aliens told their children that humans had been arrogant and were destroyed by their own mistakes. For 50,000 years, that story was repeated. Over time, truth became dust, and only the lie remained. Humanity was gone. Or so they believed. In the present age, the galaxy stood tall with mighty empires. There were the Zorath Dominion with their iron fleets, the Tezhari with their great trade worlds, and the Kryn Alliance that held 10,000 star systems. They saw themselves as masters of the galaxy. They taught that humans were nothing but a forgotten tale, an old myth. To most, humans were like ghosts. No one expected their return. But in the cold dark of space, something began to change. At the edge of the galaxy, far beyond any known empire, strange signals appeared. At first, they were dismissed as static, background noise of space. But soon, the signals grew stronger, clearer, and sharper. Patrol ships picked them up. Messages hidden inside the signals carried words no alien tongue could translate. The only thing clear was that they were old, very old. Rumors began to spread among soldiers and scientists. Some laughed, saying it was just ancient code left from dead civilizations. Others whispered the unthinkable, what if it was human? The galaxy watched nervously as the signals spread. Entire star systems began to hear the strange calls. Across empires, leaders gathered in secret councils. They argued. Some claimed it was impossible. Humanity was gone. Others felt fear in their bones, a fear that came from something deeper than memory, a fear passed down through blood and story. The Zorath warlords, proud and cruel, told their people that if humans returned, they would be crushed once again. But in their private halls, their voices shook. The Kryn scholars searched their oldest archives, and what they found chilled them. Patterns, records, and warnings written in ancient times. Humanity had not died in weakness. Humanity had left with purpose. The question was why. Then came the first sighting. A scout ship near the black void of the rim reported seeing shadows in the dark. Shapes of vessels, vast and silent, moved like mountains through space. Their outlines were unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Old yet perfect, heavy yet graceful, they glided with power. The scout fled and carried the tale back, but the crew refused to speak more. Their eyes were filled with terror. Soon, more sightings followed. Fleets of massive ships appeared, silver and black, with symbols that no one alive could read. One fact became clear to all: humanity had returned. Across the galaxy, panic spread. On countless worlds, people whispered. Was it true? Were the humans back after 50,000 years? And if so, what did they want? Many remembered the lie they had been taught, that humans destroyed themselves. But why, then, did their fleets now look stronger than any empire's greatest war machines? How could a species gone for 50 millennia return with such force? The galaxy trembled with questions. At the Great Council of the Kryn Alliance, the leaders met in a vast chamber floating above a gas giant. The head scholar spoke with a broken voice. If the humans are here, he said, then the galaxy's history is built on sand. The lie we told will crumble. Silence fell across the hall. The oldest among them remembered the stories of their ancestors, the warnings whispered at night. Never forget the humans. Never wake them. But now, they had awakened themselves. The fleets of humanity did not speak at first. They hovered at the edge of the galaxy, waiting, watching, and listening. Their ships formed walls of metal and light that stretched across systems. No empire dared to attack, not yet. But as days passed, a message came. A single transmission was sent across all frequencies, in every language of the galaxy. The voice was calm, strong, and clear. It said only this: "We have returned." The effect was thunderous. On every world, beings froze. The words carried weight beyond sound. They carried memory. Entire empires shook. The Zorath warlords called for war. The Tezhari merchants begged for trade. The Kryn scholars whispered of prophecy. But beneath all the noise, fear grew. For 50,000 years, the galaxy believed humans were gone. And now, with only 3 words, humanity had made them doubt everything. As the fleets of humanity moved closer, many noticed something strange. They did not attack, did not demand, did not conquer. They simply advanced, system by system, their presence like a shadow over every empire. Yet everywhere they went, secrets began to rise. Records hidden for ages suddenly unlocked. Old ruins hummed with energy. Ancient warnings carved on stone now glowed with light. The galaxy began to understand. The greatest lie was not only about humanity's fall. It was something larger, something darker, a secret that touched the stars themselves. The first part of the story ends with the galaxy standing on the edge of fear and revelation. Humanity had returned, silent and unshaken. And in their return, the galaxy's greatest lie began to break. What truth lay hidden, and why had humanity vanished for 50,000 years? The answer was coming, and it would change everything. The galaxy was burning with questions after humanity's return, but no answers came. The fleets of humans stayed silent after their first message, and that silence was more terrifying than war. Every empire rushed into secret meetings. In the halls of the Zorath Dominion, the warlords shouted over each other, claiming the humans were weak and arrogant, but their hands trembled on the table. In the shining towers of the Tezhari Trade Guild, merchants argued whether to offer gifts or weapons, fearing that both might be taken as insult. In the deep libraries of the Kryn Alliance, scholars read ancient records by dim light, their hearts filled with dread. Across the galaxy, one question repeated: what was the lie? For 10,000 years, the common belief was that humanity destroyed itself in pride and chaos, consumed by its own greed. This story was taught in schools, sung in songs, and written in the laws of empires. It was more than history. It was a lesson, a warning, a tool used by rulers to control their people. Do not rise too fast, they would say, or you will fall like humanity. Entire generations had lived under that shadow. Now that shadow was breaking. Humanity had not fallen in chaos. They had returned stronger than ever. And if that story was false, what else had been hidden? In hidden chambers, alien leaders whispered of old agreements. It was said that long ago, when humanity vanished, certain powerful species rewrote the past. They erased records, burned archives, and replaced the truth with their own tale. They claimed victory that never existed. They told their people they had crushed humanity when, in truth, they did not even know where humanity had gone. But the lie worked. It gave empires power and unity. They grew strong because they believed they had defeated the greatest race in the stars. And so the illusion lasted 50,000 years. But illusions cannot survive forever. The moment humanity's ships appeared, the illusion began to crack. Citizens demanded answers. On crowded city streets, voices rose. Were we lied to? Did our rulers hide the truth? Fear spread not only of humanity, but of betrayal by their own governments. Meanwhile, the human fleet moved slowly. They did not fire, did not threaten, yet every step of their movement felt like thunder. They passed through border systems with ease, their ships dark and silent except for a faint glow that no one understood. Observers sent messages back, but those who looked too long into the human fleet often fell silent, shaken, their voices empty. Something about the humans was different. They looked human, yes, but their presence carried weight. It was as if time itself bent around them. Even in silence, they carried authority. The galaxy could not understand how a species gone for 50,000 years could return with such power. In the Kryn archives, an old prophecy was discovered. It spoke of the children of the first flame, who would vanish from the stars, only to return when the galaxy was blind in lies. It warned that their return would bring the breaking of empires and the unveiling of truths hidden by the void. The Kryn scholars debated, but deep down they knew. The prophecy was about humanity. The scholars faced a terrible choice: reveal this truth and cause chaos among their people, or keep it hidden and risk being exposed by humanity themselves. In the end, they stayed silent, but their silence only deepened their fear. The Zorath warlords prepared fleets in secret. They believed strength was the only answer. If we strike now, one said, we may break them before they act. But even as they spoke, their generals looked at the images of the human ships and felt despair. The size, the technology, the silence, it was like facing gods, not mortals. Yet pride blinded them, and they began to gather weapons. The Tezhari merchants, in contrast, sent secret envoys. They offered trade, wealth, and alliance. None returned. The human fleet accepted no gifts, no bargains. They wanted only truth. And still, no one understood what truth they sought. On countless worlds, ordinary beings talked in whispers. In bars, in markets, in the shadows of cities, the story of humanity spread faster than any official decree. People no longer believed the old lessons. If humanity had not been destroyed by their own arrogance, then perhaps they had been wrong about everything. The illusion of history was breaking. The galaxy's rulers had built their power on lies, and those lies were dissolving like sand in the tide. Panic grew. Revolts began on smaller worlds. Citizens demanded to know what else had been hidden from them. The rulers tried to silence them, but fear was louder than control. Then, for the first time since their return, humanity spoke again. A message echoed across the galaxy, simple yet sharp. Why did you lie? The question was not shouted, not demanded. It was calm, but it carried power that pierced every soul who heard it. Why did you lie? The galaxy froze. Leaders looked at each other, their faces pale. They had no answer, or perhaps they feared the answer too much to speak it. For 50,000 years, they had hidden the truth, and now that truth had returned, wrapped in human steel and fire. The question did not vanish. It repeated on every channel, in every tongue, across every world. Why did you lie? Some worlds rebelled against their rulers, shouting that humanity had come to punish them. Others begged for forgiveness, sending prayers into the void. The galaxy was breaking apart, not because humanity fired a single shot, but because the illusion that bound them was unraveling. For 50,000 years, they had lived inside a cage of lies. Now the cage was broken, and nothing could hold back the flood of fear and truth. At the edge of the galaxy, the human fleet began to move again, their destination unknown. Entire empires followed their path, trembling, waiting. Wherever they went, archives opened by themselves, ruins lit with strange energy, and secrets buried in stone whispered into the air. The illusion was collapsing, and the galaxy realized with horror that they were standing on the edge of something much greater than human return. Humanity was not only back. Humanity was here to show them the truth. And the truth would tear the galaxy apart. The galaxy had lived in silence for weeks after humanity's chilling question, "Why did you lie?" still echoed through every corner of space. Leaders argued, citizens rioted, and the illusion of history crumbled further each day. But then came a moment that shook the galaxy even deeper. For the first time in 50,000 years, humanity agreed to meet. No one understood their true purpose, but their fleets moved toward the center of the galaxy, leaving a trail of fear and awe. Alien empires fought over who would speak with them first. The Zorath Dominion wanted to send warriors to prove their power. The Tezhari Guild wished to send merchants, hoping trade might soften human hearts. The Kryn Alliance decided on scholars, desperate to understand what truth humanity carried. In the end, humanity allowed only one envoy ship to approach. That ship belonged to the Kryn Alliance. Its crew was chosen carefully, each trained in diplomacy, history, and courage. Yet when they approached the human fleet, courage was the first thing to abandon them. The human ships towered like mountains of steel, silent and dark, their hulls etched with glowing patterns no one recognized. They did not drift like other vessels. They moved with grace, as if space itself bent to let them pass. The Kryn envoy felt small, like dust before giants. Their ship was pulled gently into the shadow of the largest human vessel, a colossal construct that blocked out stars. For a long time, nothing happened. No greeting, no warning, no welcome. Just silence, the kind that pressed against the bones and made hearts beat harder. Then, without a sound, a message appeared inside the envoy ship. It was not spoken aloud, not broadcasted, but burned directly into the minds of the crew. One sentence, cold and direct. Enter and speak the truth. The envoy ship shivered, but it obeyed. Inside the human vessel, the Kryn saw halls unlike anything in their records. The walls glowed with soft light, alive with patterns that shifted as they walked. Machines moved silently in the distance, but no crew could be seen. It felt less like a ship and more like a living city. At the heart of this city, they found them, humans. They looked familiar, with 2 eyes, 2 hands, and faces like the old carvings. But there was something different. Their presence was heavy, their eyes deep as if holding the weight of centuries. They wore simple robes of dark fabric, not armor, yet the Kryn felt as though they stood before gods. The leader of the Kryn envoy bowed deeply and tried to speak. His voice trembled as he welcomed them, thanked them for the meeting, and asked what humanity desired. The humans did not answer right away. Instead, they stared in silence, studying the envoy as though weighing every breath, every thought. Then the human leader spoke. His voice was calm, steady, and powerful. 50,000 years, he said. You built empires on a lie. Tell us why. The envoy froze. They had no words. Their rulers had not told them the truth. All they knew was the story given to the galaxy, that humans destroyed themselves. But standing before them, facing their gaze, the envoy could no longer repeat that lie. The truth was too close, too heavy, too undeniable. Still, the envoy tried to answer. We do not know, he admitted. The records we have say you fell. That you burned yourselves in war. The humans did not react. Their eyes remained cold, ancient, unbroken. A convenient tale, the human leader said at last. But you know it is false. The galaxy knows. The envoy wanted to argue but found no words. Deep inside, he knew the humans spoke truth. The old stories had cracks, details that never matched, questions never answered. But for generations, the lie was easier than truth. The envoy lowered his head and whispered, "Then what happened to you? Why did you leave?" That was the question burning in every mind across the galaxy. Why did humanity vanish? Why had they returned now? The human leader stepped closer, and the envoy felt the air grow heavier. We left because the galaxy was not ready, he said. We left because your kind could not bear the truth. And we returned because the lie has grown too strong. His words were simple, yet they carried the weight of ages. The envoy trembled. What truth? He asked, his voice breaking. But humanity did not answer. Instead, they turned and motioned for the envoy to follow. They walked through vast halls filled with strange machines, glowing pillars, and star maps that stretched across the walls. One map showed the galaxy, but it looked wrong. There were marks, signals, and paths leading into the void beyond known space. The envoy stared in confusion. The human leader raised a hand, and the stars shifted, forming a pattern. This is the truth, he said. The lie was never only about us. It was about what lies beyond. The envoy felt his mind drowning in the sight. There were shapes in the void, massive and terrifying, things too large to be natural. For a moment, the envoy saw movement among the dark, as if something alive waited beyond the edge of stars. Then the map faded, and the humans turned away. "You are not ready to know more," the human leader said. "Tell your rulers this. We have returned not to conquer, not to rule, but to reveal. Their time of lies is over." The envoy's body shook. He wanted to ask more, to beg for answers, but the humans were already walking away. The meeting was finished. Without a word, the envoy and his crew were escorted back to their ship. When they returned to their own people, they carried heavy hearts. They tried to explain what they saw, but most refused to believe. The rulers dismissed them, calling them fools, cowards, or liars. Yet the fear in their eyes betrayed them. Deep down, every ruler knew the truth was closer than ever. Humanity had returned, and they carried knowledge no one else could understand. When news of the meeting spread, the galaxy erupted. Some believed the Kryn envoy and fell into panic. Others claimed it was all lies to cause chaos. But one thing was certain: the humans were no longer myths. They had spoken. They had asked their question. And they had shown a glimpse of something far worse than war. The galaxy held its breath, waiting for what would come next. Humanity had made first contact after 50,000 years, and the silence that followed was louder than any battle. The galaxy trembled after the first meeting between humanity and the Kryn envoy, but answers were still hidden in shadow. The words of the human leader echoed everywhere: "Your empires were built on lies." For the rulers of the galaxy, this was poison. For the common people, it was fire. Riots grew on countless worlds as citizens demanded the truth. Why had their leaders lied? What was humanity protecting? And what was the secret that had been buried for 50,000 years? The rulers tried to silence these questions with force, but fear spread faster than control. For the first time in millennia, empires began to crack not from war but from truth. Humanity's silence only made things worse. Their fleets drifted from system to system, and wherever they passed, strange things happened. Old ruins on forgotten planets awakened with light. Lost archives long thought broken suddenly powered on. Ancient carvings glowed with strange symbols. It was as if humanity's presence itself was tearing away the lies of history. The Kryn scholars worked day and night to understand the map they had seen on the human ship, the map of stars and dark voids beyond the galaxy. They spoke of shapes hidden in the dark, massive shadows that no empire had ever recorded. When the scholars tried to warn their leaders, they were silenced, but their whispers still spread. "The lie is not only about humanity," they said. "It is about something greater, something dangerous beyond the stars." The words struck fear into the hearts of many, because if humanity had hidden this for 50,000 years, then it must be a threat unlike anything the galaxy had faced before. The Zorith warlords prepared their fleets, convinced that humanity's secret was a weapon. They believed the humans had returned with some great power to rule the galaxy. Their pride refused to believe in anything greater than themselves, and so they planned to strike. But deep inside, they too feared the truth. Their oldest songs spoke of a night when the stars would fall, when the sky itself would open and monsters would come from the dark. Those songs had been buried as myths, yet the return of humanity made the old words feel alive again. The Tezhari merchants reacted differently. They spread rumors across their trade routes, selling stories for credits. The humans discovered a great treasure, some claimed. The humans found immortality, others whispered. But no matter what tale they told, all pointed to the same question: why had humanity vanished, and why had they returned now? The mystery was too large, too heavy. It pressed down on every world. Then humanity made their second move. Without warning, one of their fleets entered the ancient system of Kalros, a system long abandoned and avoided. For ages, Kalros had been marked cursed, a place where ships disappeared and no life could survive. But when the human fleet arrived, the system came alive. Dead suns flickered, broken moons glowed, and ruins hidden under dust rose into the sky. Across the galaxy, every channel broadcast the same vision: humanity walking through the ruins of Kalros. Their leader raised a hand, and the ruins lit with power, forming a great circle of energy. The galaxy gasped. The ruins were not alien. They were human. For 50,000 years, the empires had told their people that Calros was cursed, a dead system destroyed by humanity's arrogance. They claimed humans had burned themselves there in war. But now the truth stood before everyone's eyes. Calros was not cursed. Calros was a vault. It was a place where humanity had sealed away something too powerful for the galaxy to hold. The lie was broken. The story of human weakness was shattered. The galaxy's greatest secret was revealed. Humanity had not vanished in defeat. Humanity had chosen to leave. The reaction was chaos. On thousands of worlds, citizens rebelled against their rulers. They shouted that the truth had been hidden from them, that they had been taught lies for their entire lives. Armies refused orders. Fleets mutinied. Empires shook under their own weight. And in the middle of the storm stood humanity, calm and silent. They had revealed only a piece of the truth, yet it was enough to split the galaxy in two. The Kryn scholars released a statement, even against the will of their rulers. They confirmed that Calros was a human vault and that its ruins held technology older than any empire. They spoke of energy fields, star maps, and records that hinted at a great enemy waiting beyond the galaxy. Many dismissed it as fear-mongering, but deep down, no one could deny the feeling that something was watching them from the void. Humanity's silence only made the fear stronger. Meanwhile, the Zoreth warlords could not bear the humiliation. Their pride demanded action. They gathered a massive fleet and launched an attack on Calros, determined to destroy the humans before the galaxy fully turned to their side. Billions watched as the Zoreth fleet entered the system, their ships blazing with fire. 4 hours, silence ruled the broadcasts. Then the truth came. The Zoreth fleet was gone. Not destroyed, not defeated, but simply erased. Their ships vanished the moment they fired. No wreckage, no signal, nothing. The galaxy shivered in terror. The humans had not fired a single shot. It was the vault itself that erased the Zoreth. The message was clear. Humanity had power no one could understand, power that even the strongest fleets could not resist. The illusion of dominance held by the empires was broken forever. No one believed their rulers anymore. Humanity had returned not as myths but as truth, and with their return came the end of all lies. But the humans were not finished. After the Zoreth disaster, they spoke again, sending a message to every world, every being, every soul in the galaxy. Their leader's voice was steady, heavy, and final. We did not vanish because we were weak. We vanished because the truth was too great. Now the time of lies is over. The truth will come. And with those words, the galaxy realized with horror that the shattered secret of Calros was only the beginning. Humanity had more to reveal, and each revelation would shake the stars themselves. Fear spread like fire across the galaxy after the fall of the Zoreth fleet at Calros. Billions had watched the proud warlords vanish without a trace, erased not by human weapons but by the awakened vault itself. No wreckage, no survivors, only silence where once 1,000 warships had stood. The galaxy understood then that humanity carried powers older than empires, powers that no one could fight. Panic swept across star systems. On every world, from shining capitals to forgotten colonies, people whispered of the humans. Some spoke with terror, others with awe, but all knew one truth: the lie of history was broken, and humanity's return had changed everything. Leaders gathered in their councils, their voices filled with fear. The Kryn Alliance argued that humanity must be studied and understood, for their return meant something greater than war. The Teshari merchants pleaded to open trade with them, hoping to profit before it was too late. But many rulers thought only of survival. If humanity had such power, what chance did any empire have? Already, rebellions had started. Citizens shouted in the streets, demanding answers, blaming their leaders for centuries of lies. Armies refused orders. Fleets hesitated to fight. The foundations of power were crumbling faster than anyone could repair them. The ordinary people of the galaxy lived in fear of tomorrow. In the markets of the Teshari worlds, merchants sold charms and talismans said to protect against human wrath. On Kryn colonies, crowds gathered at night to look at the stars, searching for the silver glow of human ships. On Zorith slave worlds, whispers of rebellion spread like poison, for if even the mighty warlords could be erased, then perhaps their chains could be broken too. Everywhere, fear mixed with hope, and hope was more dangerous to rulers than any weapon. Humanity had not fired a single shot, yet entire empires were on the edge of collapse. The humans remained silent, their fleets moving slowly, deliberately, never striking unless provoked. But their silence was worse than war. It was a waiting silence, a silence that made rulers sweat and citizens pray. Each time the human fleets entered a system, strange things happened. Ancient ruins glowed, old machines powered on, forgotten worlds revealed hidden vaults. Secrets long buried began to rise to the surface. It was as though humanity's very presence pulled the truth out of the galaxy, tearing away the veil of lies that had been built over 50,000 years. The rulers could no longer hide the past, for the past itself was waking. The Kryn scholars published warnings. They said that Calrose was not the only vault, that many more existed across the stars, hidden under worlds and moons, waiting to be opened. They believed the humans had left these vaults behind on purpose, not as weapons, but as guardians. Guardians of what, no one knew. But one detail haunted the scholars: the star maps shown in the human ship. The maps pointed outward, into the void beyond the galaxy, where shadows larger than suns seemed to wait. The scholars whispered that the true enemy was not human, not alien, but something else, something from outside. But their warnings were ignored or silenced. Rulers feared the truth would destroy them faster than humanity's return. In secret, the Teshari Guild tried to bribe human fleets with treasures and resources. Entire cargo ships filled with gold, crystals, and rare technology were sent to human vessels. None returned. The treasures vanished, not stolen, but simply gone, as though they had never existed. The message was clear: humanity could not be bought. The guild fell into panic, their trade routes collapsing under fear. The Zorith Dominion, humiliated by the erasure of their fleet, tried to rally what remained of their armies. They claimed it was a trick, that the humans used forbidden weapons to cheat. But their words held no weight, for their people had seen the truth. The warlords ruled through fear, and now their people feared someone else more. Rebellions grew in their worlds, tearing apart their empire from the inside. As fear spread, the humans spoke again. Their message was short but devastating. The vaults will open. You cannot stop them. The words struck harder than any weapon. Across the galaxy, panic turned into chaos. If the vaults were opening, then what was inside them? Was it salvation? Was it doom? No one knew, and that ignorance tore at the mind. On world after world, people turned against their rulers. They no longer trusted the old lies. Some worshipped humanity as saviors, believing they had returned to protect the galaxy. Others cursed them as destroyers, believing they had come to end everything. But all agreed on one thing: humanity had become the center of the galaxy's fate. In the great cities of the Kryn, statues of rulers were torn down, replaced with crude carvings of human ships. On Teshari markets, merchants sold images of human fleets, claiming they brought good fortune. In Zorith strongholds, rebel banners carried human symbols, daring to defy their warlords. Entire cultures began to shift around humanity's shadow, and still the humans said almost nothing. They did not conquer. They did not demand. They simply moved, step by step, and the galaxy followed in fear. One night, in the heart of the Kryn capital, an old scholar stood before the council and told them the truth no one wished to hear. He said the humans had not vanished in weakness. They had vanished to protect the galaxy from what lay beyond. The vaults were not treasures, but shields. Shields against something vast and terrible that would one day arrive. His words spread, carried in secret across the galaxy. The idea took root, that the humans had been guardians, not conquerors. And if they had returned, then perhaps the danger they feared was now close. This belief grew, filling hearts with dread. If true, then humanity was not the enemy. Humanity was the warning. The galaxy lived in terror of shadows they could not see. The stars felt colder, the night darker, the silence deeper. Every empire prepared for war, but no one knew against whom. Their fear rose higher than ever before, because they realized the truth. Their greatest enemy might not be humanity at all. It might be something waiting in the endless dark, something that only humanity truly understood. And as the human fleets continued their slow march, the galaxy held its breath, knowing that the rising fear was only the beginning. The galaxy had reached a point where fear had turned into obsession, every ruler and every citizen speaking of humanity's return as if the fate of all existence depended on it, and in truth it did, for the humans had begun to reveal the first signs of their true power. Until now their fleets had moved in silence, opening vaults and erasing enemies with forces no one understood, but at last they showed something more, something that shook even the strongest hearts. In the outer rim near the dead system of Varos, a human fleet gathered around a star that had long since gone dark. For thousands of years it had been nothing but a cold husk, its worlds frozen, its people gone, yet as the galaxy watched through hidden probes, the star began to burn again. It was not science, it was not technology, it was something deeper, something older, something that no one could explain. The humans had reignited a star, and in that single act they proved they were beyond the limits of known power. The empires panicked, because if humanity could breathe life into stars, then what could they not do? The Zorith warlords, broken and desperate, screamed that the humans were gods playing games with creation, and though they mocked with their words, their trembling voices betrayed the truth. They believed it too. The Kryn scholars fell into despair, because their entire knowledge of physics, time, and life had shattered in one moment. The Tezhari merchants tried to make profit even from this revelation, selling stories and images of the reborn star across the galaxy, but their trade could not hide the trembling of their hands. No one was safe from the weight of what they had seen. Yet the humans did not boast, they did not threaten, they simply moved their fleet away, leaving the star burning again as if to remind the galaxy of what they could do. To them it was not a weapon, it was a message, a whisper carried through the void, a warning that their return was not about conquest but about destiny. On distant worlds, prophets rose, some claiming humanity was chosen by the cosmos, others claiming they were the bringers of doom. Rebellions grew stronger, for oppressed peoples no longer feared their rulers, they feared only the silence of the humans and what might follow it. Armies deserted, fleets refused to fight, and leaders found themselves powerless, unable to control their own subjects. The galaxy was unraveling not by human weapons but by human presence. Every empire felt the same question gnawing at them. If this was only the beginning, what would the end look like? Soon after, another display came. In the Nibarian cluster, storms of plasma had raged for centuries, destroying every attempt to colonize, killing ships that dared pass through, a cursed region no one could tame. But when a human fleet entered the storms, they parted, as though the very elements obeyed them. Lightning bent away, radiation faded, the chaos fell silent. The humans moved through unharmed, and behind them the storms calmed forever. Planets once considered lost were suddenly open again, and colonists whispered that humanity had freed them. But the rulers saw something far more frightening. They saw a race that not only commanded machines but bent the laws of nature itself. Such power was not simply strength, it was authority, an authority that even the stars obeyed. The Kryn Council tried to send envoys, begging the humans to explain, but none returned. The Tezhari sent spies, but their ships vanished into silence. The Zorith gathered their remaining fleets, swearing vengeance, but when they entered the Nibarian cluster, they were torn apart by storms that now bent only against them. Everywhere the humans went, the galaxy learned the same lesson. Resistance was meaningless, because the humans were no longer limited to the tools of war, they were tied to something deeper, something the galaxy could not touch. In secret, whispers spread of ancient records, fragments of history hidden for 50,000 years. Some spoke of humans who had once walked among the stars like guardians, shaping worlds and guiding young civilizations. Others claimed they had fought against something outside the galaxy, an enemy so vast and so dark that no one else had survived it. These whispers grew louder as vaults continued to open. Each vault revealed not treasure but warnings, echoes of voices long gone, messages written in stone and light, messages that said the same thing again and again: the enemy comes. Be ready. The galaxy shuddered at those words, because they understood then that humanity's power was not meant to conquer them but to prepare them. Yet fear twisted even this truth, because if the enemy was so terrible that only humanity could stand against it, then perhaps nothing could save them. The humans finally spoke again, their message clear and calm, sent across every channel of the galaxy. They said, "We are not here to rule. We are here because the lie is broken. You must choose, stand with us or stand aside." These words caused more chaos than any battle. Entire empires split apart. The Kryn people demanded to ally with the humans, while their rulers resisted. The Tezhari guilds fought each other, some desperate to cling to the old ways, others eager to follow humanity's shadow. The Zorith dominion bled from within, torn apart by civil war as slaves rose against their masters, shouting that humanity had returned to give them freedom. No empire was stable anymore, no leader safe. But even as the galaxy fought among itself, the humans continued their silent work. They opened more vaults, reignited more stars, calmed more storms, each time revealing more of their true power. And with each act the galaxy felt the same mix of awe and terror. Some prayed to them as gods. Some cursed them as demons. But all knew one thing: humanity was not like the others. They had touched forces beyond understanding, forces that even time and death could not erase. And perhaps the most frightening truth of all was that humanity was only beginning to show what they could do. In the end, the galaxy realized that weapons, fleets and armies meant nothing in the face of such power. What mattered was the choice humanity had given them: stand with them or stand aside. But what did that mean? To stand aside was to be erased like the Zorith fleet. To stand with them was to face an unknown enemy, an enemy greater than anything the galaxy had ever imagined. It was no choice at all, and yet it was the only choice they had. Humanity's true power was not only in their fleets, not only in their command of stars and storms, but in the destiny they carried, a destiny that pulled the entire galaxy into its wake. And as their fleets moved onward, silent and unstoppable, the galaxy held its breath once more, knowing the real battle had not yet begun. The galaxy had begun to fracture under the weight of humanity's return, but even as rulers struggled to hold their power and rebels shouted for freedom, a new unease began to spread, one that was colder and darker than fear of the humans themselves, because strange signals had started to echo from the edge of the void, signals that no one could explain. They came from beyond the galactic rim, faint at first, like whispers lost in static, but growing clearer with every passing cycle. Fleets sent to investigate did not return, probes vanished into silence, and entire outposts went dark without warning. At first leaders blamed the humans, claiming they were behind these vanishings, but soon the truth became undeniable. Even the humans themselves turned their fleets outward, toward the empty dark, and their silence in those moments spoke louder than any words. The galaxy realized then that the ancient warnings were real, that something waited outside the stars, something humanity had feared long before their disappearance, and now it was coming back. In the Kryn academies, scholars worked day and night to decode the strange signals, comparing them to fragments found in the human vaults. What they discovered was terrifying. The signals were not random noise, they were patterns, and within those patterns were coordinates that shifted as though something vast was moving closer. Worse still, hidden within the pulses was a rhythm like a heartbeat, a steady beat that carried across the void. Some believed it was a machine, others said it was a living thing so immense it bent the fabric of space itself, but all agreed on one thing: it was not natural. The Kryn Council tried to suppress this information, but it spread quickly through the stars, and panic rose again. For if the humans had returned because of this, then the galaxy was facing an enemy greater than any empire had ever imagined. The Tezhari merchants saw opportunity even in this terror, selling fake charms said to shield ships from the shadow signals, but even they knew the truth could not be bought away. Their caravans began to vanish one by one at the rim, leaving behind only fragments of broken hulls drifting in the dark. The Zorith dominion, already collapsing, fell further into chaos as entire sectors went silent, their warlords unable to command when their fleets never returned from patrol. For the first time in history, every empire felt the same helplessness, the same sense of being hunted by something unseen. Human fleets were sighted more frequently at the galactic edge, their ships forming walls of light against the darkness. They no longer opened vaults or reignited stars. Their attention was fixed outward, as though guarding against something just beyond reach. When they did speak, their words chilled even the bravest hearts. It has begun. That simple phrase echoed through every world, through every channel, and the galaxy trembled. Because if the humans were afraid, then what chance did anyone else have? Soon the first true evidence appeared. In the empty system of Dravan, a mining colony reported shadows moving between the stars, shapes larger than moons gliding without sound. Their images showed nothing clear, only outlines of impossible size, but their voices were filled with terror. Minutes later the colony went silent, and when a Kryn fleet arrived, they found only ruins, as though the very life had been drained from the planet. Not destroyed, not burned, but emptied, like a husk. The Kryn retreated in panic, their reports spreading fire through the galaxy. Some called the invaders the Star Eaters, others named them the Hunger Beyond, but whatever the name, all agreed that they were the true enemy, the one the humans had warned of. In the following cycles, more systems fell. Not to conquest, but to silence. Worlds went dark without warning, their stars dimming, their life stolen. No weapons could stop it, no fleets survived. Entire civilizations that had stood for thousands of years were erased in hours. The galaxy understood then why the humans had returned, because only they had faced this before, only they had lived through the first war against the Shadow Beyond. And even now it was unclear if they could win again. The humans began to open the vaults at a faster pace. Each vault revealed ancient machines, vast constructs that rose from beneath planets and moons, powered by energy older than empires. These constructs moved to join the human fleets, building a defense at the edge of the galaxy. The sight was both inspiring and terrifying. For the first time, the galaxy saw humanity not as conquerors, but as warriors standing against something greater than themselves. But this revelation did not erase fear. Instead, it deepened it, for if humanity needed such weapons, then the enemy must be far worse than anyone had dreamed. In the Kryn capital, riots broke out as citizens demanded alliance with the humans. In Tezhari markets, preachers declared that the end of days had come. In Zorath strongholds, slaves broke their chains, claiming that if the galaxy was doomed, they would rather die free. Everywhere, chaos spread, but beneath the chaos was a growing truth: survival depended on humanity. And yet no one knew if the humans could be trusted, for though they stood against the darkness, they still revealed little of themselves, speaking only when necessary, never explaining more than a few words. One night, in a broadcast that reached every corner of the stars, the humans gave their clearest message yet. A figure appeared, not a soldier, not a ruler, but a simple human elder with silver eyes. Their voice was calm, but heavy with sorrow. The shadows have come again. They will devour everything. We cannot defeat them alone. Stand with us, or fall with the stars. The galaxy froze, because those words were not just warning, they were invitation. For the first time, humanity had asked the others to stand beside them, and in that moment the galaxy had to decide whether to unite or perish. But even as debates raged, the shadows drew closer. Systems at the rim were falling faster, their stars dimming one by one like candles snuffed in the wind. Fleets sent to fight never returned, their signals cut off mid-scream. And all the while, humanity held the line, their fleets glowing like silver fire against the endless dark, their power vast but not infinite. They could not hold forever. The galaxy faced its greatest test, a test that would reveal not just the strength of humanity, but the will of every race that had once believed the lie of history. And as the shadows pressed harder, the galaxy realized the terrible truth. The return of humanity was not the end of the story, it was only the beginning of a war that would decide the fate of everything that lived beneath the stars. The galaxy had no more time for arguments as the shadows pressed inward, swallowing stars and worlds with terrifying speed, and everywhere the same truth became clear: only humanity stood between survival and total extinction, their fleets holding the rim like a wall of fire against an ocean of darkness. But even their power was not endless, and so at last the empires made their choice. The Kryn sent their fleets, not in defiance but in desperate alliance, their ships forming ranks beside human warships. The Tezhari merchants abandoned profit, turning their great trade convoys into supply lines that carried food, fuel, and medicine to the front. Even the broken Zorith Dominion, torn apart by civil war, saw their slaves rise as free people, and those same freed rebels volunteered to fight under humanity's banner, determined to face the shadows as equals. For the first time in 50,000 years, the galaxy was united, not by trust, not by peace, but by the simple truth that they would all fall together if they did not fight together. The shadows were unlike any enemy they had faced. They did not fight with weapons or ships but with endless forms that twisted like smoke and iron, vast living shapes that moved through space as if it were water. They devoured energy, they swallowed stars, they broke the minds of those who looked too long into them. Yet when they reached the human line they found resistance, for the vault machines had awakened, great constructs that shone like suns, and the humans guided them with a mastery no other race could match. The first great battle began at the rim system of Narrated, and it lasted for days without pause, waves of shadow crashing against walls of light. Fleets burned, worlds shook, but humanity did not break. The Kryn fought with precision, their disciplined formations cutting through the darkness. The Tezhari supplied ships in the middle of battle, keeping the fleets alive when all seemed lost. The freed Zorith fought with fury, their vengeance turning into a weapon of fire as they rammed enemy shapes, sacrificing themselves to buy time. And through it all, the humans led, not from behind but at the very front, their ships moving like silver blades, striking with power that bent the laws of nature. They tore holes in the shadows with weapons no one understood, and every time it seemed the line would collapse, they pushed it back again. Still, the cost was terrible. Thousands of ships were lost, millions of lives gone in moments, and the shadows showed no end, only more and more waves pressing in from the void. Despair grew, and even the bravest began to fear it was hopeless. Then, in the darkest moment, the humans revealed their final secret. From the heart of the vaults rose the greatest of their constructs, a colossal machine larger than moons, glowing with energy so bright it cast shadows across the stars. It was not a weapon of war but a shield, a barrier that spread across the rim, halting the advance of the shadows. The galaxy watched in awe as the impossible became real, a wall of light stretching across space, holding back the darkness. But the humans knew the truth. The shield was not infinite, it could only hold if fueled by sacrifice. They told the galaxy what must be done, that fleets must guard the shield, that supplies must feed it, that every world must give what it could, because this was not a battle of days but of years, perhaps centuries. The message was simple yet heavy. The final stand was not a single moment but a war of survival, and all must endure it. The galaxy trembled, for the cost would be endless, yet for the first time they also felt hope, because humanity had not abandoned them, humanity had given them a chance. The battles that followed became legends. On the world of Kalos, humans and Kryn fought side by side on the ground as shadow forms tried to consume the planet's core. In the skies of Tresh, Tezhari convoys flew unarmed through fire to deliver supplies, losing half their number but saving the fleet. In the Broken Dominion, freed Zorith led entire rebellions to seize ships from their old warlords and send them to the front. Everywhere, sacrifices were made, and everywhere the shield held. The shadows pushed again and again, their forms twisting, adapting, trying to break through, but humanity always stood at the center, guiding, defending, leading. And yet even with hope, fear remained. For the humans spoke little of victory, only of holding the line. They never promised the shadows could be destroyed, only that they could be resisted. The galaxy understood then the depth of humanity's burden, that for 50,000 years they had carried this secret, vanishing not in weakness but in duty, building the vaults, preparing for this very war. Now that war had come again, and the humans had returned not to conquer but to protect, knowing that protection might cost them everything. The final stand was not glorious, it was endless. Day by day, system by system, the galaxy fought, lost and fought again. The shield burned brighter, fueled by sacrifice, and the shadows screamed against it, their vast forms writhing in frustration, unable to break through. And though no one knew how long it could last, the galaxy no longer doubted. Humanity's return had not shattered the galaxy's illusion only to replace it with despair. It had shown them the truth, that survival was possible, but only together. So the galaxy fought on, and the legend of humanity grew, not as gods, not as rulers, but as guardians standing against the endless dark. And in that unity, fragile and desperate, the galaxy found its first true chance at a future. For even if the shadows pressed forever, even if the cost was infinite, they knew one thing with certainty. Humanity would never break, and as long as they stood, the stars would not fall.